Feels good to be back in Curio City.
Couldn't get rid of him. Just kidding. Nobody was trying.
It's impossible. I'm just here. I'm usually in the background now, but I like to be in front of the microphone too.
Yeah, we're bringing it back. Don't you worry.
We're out here. We're doing the thing.
Welcome to Curio City, everyone. I'm Lauren.
Mm-hmm. I'm Adam.
And we are your hosts here in Curio City.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you really excited to talk?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
We have so much going on right now in our personal lives that, like, the podcast and, like, getting to talk to each other is...
It's a rarity at this point.
Relaxing.
Yeah, it really is so nice. But it's like, it's also so fun because I get to listen to you have such in-depth intellectual conversations with such interesting people. And I feel like they end up somehow, I mean, obviously, they end up revolving around the conversations we're having throughout our lives, throughout the week, throughout the month, whatever. Mm-hmm. The things that we're like thinking about end up being the things that everybody's kind of thinking about. There's like a collective consciousness of the questions that we have.
Yeah.
In the universe. And it's just like surrounding yourself with people who are open to just being able to discuss anything and everything, as long as they're like vulnerable, open, and responsible with their emotional energy. Like, I feel like it just has been making for such incredible conversations.
We're all riding that wave, baby.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think we really are.
Okay, so you messaged me today. I was asking Adam, I was like, so what do you want to focus on for the episode tonight? And he texted me these two things.
I did bullet points just to be clear for everybody because I was like in between making drums and just literally like thinking, listening to podcasts.
They're two different thoughts for sure.
Yeah.
But they kind of go together.
But they kind of do, yeah.
We're going to dive into that. I'm going to read them out loud so you can kind of understand the theme of like what we're going to be talking about today.
Oh, I like that.
And then we're going to
give them a little teaser.
But Julie?
She's fine. She can wander. Whatever.
Come on. Up.
Good girl.
Yay.
Patchouli Joy.
we never call her by her, well, even her first name.
Well, look, you go by Lauren DeLeary. I go by Adam Frost. She gets her own name.
Yeah.
Full name.
If you're not watching the video, our dog just jumped up on the couch, okay? So anyway.
It's not a guest, but kind of it is.
She is a guest. So here are the themes of today.
Yeah.
Meaning and purpose for self-growth rather than fixating on other people's problems. And the second is villainization of proactive problem solving. Fascinating topics, Adam.
I feel like they go together though, because the thing is that like, I feel like we end up so, especially in this like, and look, I just want to be clear for anybody that's a new listener. Like, we are very progressive in our ideologies. We always want to be as inclusive as possible. But I think there's just a social media culture that's happening right now that I already just have such an abhorrence of social media. Like, I really don't post. I don't really like being online all that much just because I feel like there's this... It's like a mob mentality that you can't escape. I mean, the minute you get online, it's mob mentality, which can be really beneficial because you can get group rallying. You can get some actual really good work done by creating a common goal online, and you can access people from all over the world. But at the same time, when you get online, you are accessing everyone in the whole world. We never had that kind of scope before for our existence. And like, it has created an environment where it feels irresponsible to actually deal with your own things that you want to do and create in the world. And instead you feel this obligation to be alongside people and be an ally to those who are dealing with imminent issues.
Well, damn. You just jumped right into it.
I mean, I feel like I have to. It's just like, it's just one of those things that like, I feel like once you get there, once you're online, there's so many social structures and social contracts, whether written or unspoken or whatever, that we are assigning to ourselves and the groups that we interact with. And it just, to me, it feels like the commodification of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, empathy. It feels like empathy is being commodified into something where you have to say out loud to the rest of the world, the things that you feel empathetic about, the things that you're relating to, the things that you're seeing in the world, you have to have a comment on it all. And I feel like that constant externalization of your energy, for me, is making it almost impossible to specialize in doing something important in the world. It feels like it takes the energy that I would be able to assign to doing one thing well in the world and is just diversifying it into a billion different things.
Diversifying.
Into like a million different issues. And I feel like I just can't concentrate my power enough to really do, to even really be able to come up with proactive problem solving stuff. Like I was talking about that. Like the thing that is valued, the thing that we as like monkey brain humans will respond to is the validation that we get from people seeing that we're aligning with a common cause and say, hey, look, this person's empathetic. They're good. They're progressive. They have the right thinking. They have the right mentality. They're aware of situations that are happening and they're taking a stance. But these days, taking a stance doesn't really mean anything because it doesn't come with any, there's no like expectation of follow through anymore. And so like, I feel like there's just this like, the best way I can say it is like commodification of empathy and not actual action.
Mic drop. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, you know, we were kind of chatting about this beforehand, but I do want to like talk a bit about like the first half of it.
Okay.
And when you're talking about the meaning and purpose for self-growth,
Yeah.
rather than fixating on other people's problems.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about that because I feel like that leads us into some of this deeper stuff that you're talking about, which I just love. That's just who you are. You're like right to the meat, but like court me first.
Wow. Amazing. Too many jokes that could happen there.
I had a feeling. Okay, wait. All right, so let's back up.
Yeah.
Can you, I told you I had some questions based off of your thoughts here. So can you share your personal journey and experiences in finding meaning and purpose for self-growth and how it differs from fixating on other people's problems?
Well, I can say that in the public eye, at least with the podcast, just to kind of keep it in scope here, like my personal growth was becoming somebody who was a good, and this is through our whole relationship and everything, like going from somebody who had been single their whole life and just kind of had moderately maintained friendships, was never really good at it, to moving into marriage and moving into a very intentional relationship, that active listening, and really deep thought, and processing alongside that listening has been something that I've really worked at developing for myself, actually being able to like sit and listen to somebody. And I think that kind of pairs alongside the, like, I've always said that I'm a very present person. Yeah. I don't text. I don't do social media. I don't really I don't exist anywhere really other than where I am in the moment. And sometimes that can overwhelm me because it feels like I'm
not a
just
great long distance boyfriend.
No, and I toured for too long to be a bad long distance boyfriend. But like I feel like sometimes it can be overwhelming because I'll be inundated with the gravity of being in the situation that I'm in, and it can feel like it's consuming my whole world. But I think being present to me was something that really bridged me into being a good host, being a good like neutral platform where I wanted to be able to platform others and be able to be kind of like the chalkboard to their story, to their growth and their education, the things that they'd invested years and years and years of time into and trying to distill down. They're trying to distill down their information, and I want to make sure that I'm listening for what they really want to be telling the world. And so like that to me has been a very specific point of personal growth in my journey, as it pertains to the podcast. And I think that because it coincided with my ability to seem empathetic and also come alongside allyship and come alongside people's efforts to do good in the world, it kind of satiated both the external efforts and also my internal personal growth. But the thing is that like once I became good at that, once I became good at basically being nobody and just asking questions and being able to like probe into somebody else's life, I just kind of came to a spot where I was like, I am just listening. All I do is absorb. All I do is exist to reflect back people's opinions and to just try to amplify stories that need to be told. And that's good. And that was a good journey for a season. But I think, like, as you know, and as you've been through many seasons, like, that's good for a season. But if you live in it too long beyond its expiration, it becomes toxic. It becomes something that you settle into. And it becomes something that becomes a crutch and like bypassing the actual growth that you know that you need to do in your life. And I think that a lot of people kind of settled into, and especially I will say white allies to marginalized identities, white, straight, cisgender, all the things that you could possibly, you know, that have been the forefront of the marginalized identities in the past few years. If you are none of those things, then one of the primary things that if you were a good progressive ideologist was you became nobody. And that's not any sort of victimization. I think it's the easy pass out. So it's like, I think it almost gets to the point for me where I felt like I was almost to the point of being so empty to be filled, and to use Christian terminology, that I was almost appropriating other people's messages and intellect and research and schooling and like their experiences to act as my voice. And I wanted to move past that.
How do you mean appropriating?
Well, because when I'm able to be lauded as somebody who's good at podcasting, when our podcast was really surviving and thriving and doing well, it was doing well because we didn't exist in a lot of ways. I mean, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about that journey for us? How do you feel about that season of our existence?
It was only like a specific season when I think I was trying to cater to our listeners rather than my own curiosities.
Yeah.
And the beginning of our podcast, when I was first having guests on, it was literally just all the people I found interesting, and I wanted to know more about them and their brain. And
it was almost a selfish interest.
Yes, and anyone who does podcasts, it's like that's how it should be. And it makes the conversations that much more exciting for you and for the listeners. And I think there was like a season within, a couple of years ago when I would ask people on, not that I didn't find them interesting, but kind of at the same time, just to be brutally honest, like some people I had on because I knew our listeners would find value, but I was like,
you're like, I've heard this
really
story
into
before.
it. Yeah. So I think in that sense, it wasn't even so much that my voice, I didn't feel like my personality wasn't there, but I felt like my curiosity wasn't there, which obviously we're curiosity. And so curiosity is like the main point. And so now like every single guest that comes on, like it's because I find them interesting.
Well, and I remember too when we were touring that one of your primary concerns of what you were doing was that you didn't feel like people valued you for your opinion.
Yeah.
They valued you for your talent. Yeah. So like,
right.
Do you feel like you kind of slipped back into that?
I did. Yeah. No, I think so, because
even though the podcast was our chase, us wanting to chase down people valuing our voice.
Well, no, I mean, I think originally the podcast was, for me, I genuinely wanted a space to hold conversations that I found interesting and other people could learn from, because I was learning a lot from podcasts. So really that was my intention. Yeah. And so when that got lost along the way, it was like, what is the point? Yeah. And so now, like I said, now that I'm just having on guests that I find so interesting and I'm like curious about them and either the work they do or all the things they do or whatever, it's like either their personality, career. I mean, there's so many angles that I find a human being interesting. Yeah. Then like I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. But yeah. So I mean, I don't know if that answers your question. I mean, as far as like emptying like relating to you and like emptying yourself.
Yeah, I was just curious
way.
what your perspective was, because you've always led us in this. Like this
Yeah.
has always been like, and as has become very evident, I think to you guys, to our listeners, is that this podcast has always been yours, and I've been here to like help facilitate, whether it's just technologically or like,
well, I think
had
you're great.
the honor of sitting down next to you and like actually speaking with you.
Oh, well, I think you're great.
Well, I think you're great
here.
too. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a reason that I want to help put your voice on the map. I mean, you are also not just a straight cisgender white man.
That is true.
Which is helpful, because like for me, that's what I'm saying is like that was my, it felt like my cross to bear, as it were, in the like progressive space, is like, I had to just be an ally in so many ways. But that isn't necessarily the case for you. So I'm just curious, like,
well,
and you kept pushing, and you're the one that knows all the people, that asks people on and invites people on, and like,
well, the only time as far as I'll like kind of take what you just mentioned, at times when I feel like if somebody in the progressive space isn't listening to me, I'm like, do I really got to pull the Indigenous card on you? Like, that's so annoying, but I'm just being honest. Like, it works. Like, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, oops. I'm like, yeah. I hate that though. Like, why do I have to be Indigenous for my opinion to matter to progressive people? You know, like, that's a whole other side of things. But anyway, I also like speak on it just for my own, because I am Indigenous, and so it's important to me. But I just it's always in the back of my mind where I'm just like, what? Anyway.
Well, I feel like that's mostly, especially when they're trying to explain progressivism to you. Like when they're trying to explain the reasoning behind the choices that they're making that are in disagreement with your opinion.
Sure.
And it's like, and generally, just to kind of like broad stroke it, is like 85% of the people that have ever had issue and have ever like caused a stir in our environment is white allies who are just trying to speak on behalf of those who have been marginalized. Yeah. And so that's a difficult thing to also like wrestle with. And I feel that's where my burden is, which is why I always respond to the negativity, especially in the DMs and stuff. I feel like that's the thing that I owe to the progressive movement, is to like kind of step into those spaces where it's just like white allyship that is taking over the actual message of people who are trying to get word out there and trying to like do something incredible in the world.
Yeah.
Because it's just, there's a lot of people that have done research, and if you just listen to them speak, and if you listen to their experiences, like, that's all they're asking you to do. Yeah.
Also, just so many people are just swept up in their emotions, which is just insane.
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy to spot. Okay, how do you feel like that like relates to the statement of fixating on other people's problems?
Well, I think that's the entire culture around it.
Okay.
Is that you are just, not you specifically, obviously, but
so fixating on other people's problems means
that there's
on other people's,
because we're exposed to so much. There's so much exposure to every problem that's ever happening in the world. It's hard to see that we're actually a lot better off than we've ever been.
Yeah. True.
Like there's like a 95 or some insane % reduction in natural disaster deaths in the world. And yet we see significantly more trauma and disaster and death and everything than we ever have. But so to us, it seems like it's exponentially increased in the way that, like, as global warming is happening, and as you've said in the past, as we're coming to the end of, or at least we're moving out of an ice age right now, and we're seeing climate change that is affecting the way that the world interacts with the human species. Like, we're seeing a lot of trauma, and we're seeing a lot of pain, and we're seeing a lot of like chaos that's happening that we haven't seen before. And yet that's only 5% of what was happening before in this, example. And so it's like, how do you allow yourself to sit and be vulnerable and be open and be empathetic to all of the problems that are happening in the world, while also realizing that our ability to experience those things and to be able to like be in witness of the things that are happening in the world it's the first time it's happening ever.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube started in 2007, end of 2007, beginning of 2008.
It's crazy.
We had no real form of video content or an ability to really like experience anybody else's life prior to that.
That's so true, which is crazy. We like have lived through that.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Not only have we lived through that, like you and I were kind of old when that started.
Well, we weren't old, but we were definitely very aware. Like we were experiencing it. It wasn't just happening at the time of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I was 14 when it started.
Yeah. Okay, now I was going to ask, like, what are some common misconceptions or pitfalls people encounter when they focus solely on fixing other people's problems instead of their own personal growth?
They don't create anything new.
Okay. So they
contribute nothing.
Yeah.
And there's no actual, and as I was kind of saying before, like there's no reward for actually trying to resolve problems, because the thing is almost entirely the way that we kind of gauge our interaction and interfacing with progressive movements is through social media. It's through the comments section of a YouTube video or a Facebook post or an Instagram photo or like whatever it is, a reel. And it's just through discourse that's happening on those platforms specifically. And it's like those media entities thrive off of negative reinforcement. It's all about being able to have the strongest opinion, to be the most offended, to be the one that has the like biggest issue that can generate the most amount of like backlash, comments, arguments. Like if you can get people clicking back onto a post, that's the goal. And so like for us to gauge the value that we're providing to the world off of how much we can be a social justice warrior on a platform that's leveraged on negativity, it just seems so backward. And I feel like that, like, do you know anybody else that has like, I mean, the only person that I can think of actively right now is Alice, has a blog where she doesn't really she receives comments on social media about what she wrote on her blog, but it's like bloggers are the only people I can really think of that are introducing new ideas into the world without trying to
writers.
Yeah, without trying to like generate some sort of discourse that's going to boost their likes, follows, and subscribes.
Well, there are comments on Substack and things like that. People can interact.
Sure.
They're encouraged to, because it does help that. You know.
Yeah. It
helps reads and views and all that things. But yeah, no, I get your point. I think in a time where video is like king right now, it's kind of scary / intimidating to like see somebody talk about, I don't know, like holding two truths at once kind of thing.
Yeah.
And holding nuance. But like in writing, that's like the beauty of like writing. I feel like you can just take your time with it.
And authors that are writing like full on books. Like, can you imagine right now actually holding strong to a belief system for 16 months of your life?
Yeah, no, that's why I stopped.
And I mean, like, because you have to publish a book like
I
16 to 18 months after you start the thought, and you have to have thought the thought for a minute to write about it.
It's literally why I stopped writing, because that's why I'm a podcaster, because
you can just respond in the moment and be where you're at.
Yeah, I can record every single week.
That's interesting.
And that's why, I mean, I'd like to write a book someday, but I'd have to stop evolving so fast.
That's one of the reasons, and I'm going to just preface this. I don't love Joe Rogan, but I love Joe Rogan's take on how he does podcasting.
I mean, he's clearly fantastic at
what
he does.
Clearly. He asks such good questions, but also he's willing to be so blatantly wrong and does not care.
Is Joe Rogan a curious cutie?
I think he is, honestly. like I've heard him specifically say, 2 weeks ago, I thought, this certain way about baseline income that's funded by the federal government. And he's like, and 2 weeks later, I flipped my whole opinion in an interview, and I was on tape saying the entire opposite. And he's like, you know what? That's what being...
To me, that's like again, I don't know him, but like to me, that feels like a safe person to me.
Yeah.
Because that's somebody who can like own up to that. Like, I personally like that sort of mentality. I can like somebody's... Speaking of Alice, I said this to her, and we say it to each other all the time now, but like, I can like somebody's functions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't have to like their opinions.
Yeah.
Or agree with them, but I have found that it's okay to like, appreciate, and respect somebody's functions, even though you're not like seeing eye to eye all the time. I think it's actually really healthy to do that. And I actually don't listen to much of his stuff, but I hear a lot about him. I've listened to a couple of them. And
yeah, I mostly listen to his interviews with like astrophysicists and stuff.
Yeah, the very heady stuff. I would say on a very base level, I like the way his brain functions. I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I have a question for you first.
Oh, okay.
You don't get to just drill me with these.
I want to, though. I have so many questions.
I am curious if you feel like you have a specific thing that you're trying to create in the world right now.
This podcast. What do you tell? What do you say?
Yeah, I know. But I mean, like, in a different way, like, is there something specific about the way that we're doing the podcast now that you feel like is different than what we were doing before? Or do you feel like you have always had a singular objective with this?
Oh.
Because it sounds like, as you were talking, like you kind of were pandering to your audience a little bit.
I think it's the same as it was in the beginning, funnily enough. Mm-hmm. I think now it's just like, I'm just finding people who I admire and who I'm interested to get to know better. Mm-hmm. And I have a conversation with them, and I like what they're doing. And I'm like, let's find some common grounds. Let's like, yeah. I mean, I think that's the point. Like, mm-hmm. I like listening to podcasts, learning a few things, and also just being a fly on the wall, getting to know a person's personality better.
Yeah.
And that's like what I think, like, I'm really excited about. I think having on different guests, which you guys will continue to hear, but like, there are so many different routes that people have taken, like with their like spirituality. Some people were never spiritual. Mm-hmm. Some people just, fair warning, there is one episode that they're Christian. Mm-hmm. And that's like, I mean, I'm not going to be anti-Christian, right? I'm not going to be anti anything. That's part of the whole, like, I just want to be curious about
That's the whole
everyone.
thing.
It's the whole thing. So we're going to have all different kinds of people on. We already have. It's like mm-hmm. we're batch recording. So it's really about just like remaining open and just like truly following my interests and my curiosities without rules of what somebody's going to like, or also no rules for the kind of structure that it needs to look like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing that I've leaned into, and I know that you and I have had conversation about this in the past, but one of the biggest things that I feel like is my responsibility this season, and what I feel like should be a lot of white ally responsibility, is actually to be having conversations with the people in your life that are conservative, the people in your life that are anti-LGBTQ, and learning to befriend those people so that you can have beneficial conversations to help shift the narrative around the disparity between your beliefs and theirs. Mm-hmm. Like, for me, when I talk to my family, my responsibility as somebody who is unaffected by some of the really negative language and the really problematic belief systems that they can tend to hold, my responsibility is to sit with that, let them say the words that are harmful with, obviously with discernment.
And without people around that's going to be harmed by it.
Yes. Because obviously that's an entirely different thing.
Like offended. essentially.
Yeah.
Because that was me, which is why like I found my space, and you're like, yeah, you're.
And I was like, I'm gonna go see my family by myself now for a few years, and we're gonna figure out how to have these conversations. And I think that the thing is that is happening with, specifically for me, white allies, is that they are finding the easy path in being congratulated for being allies, rather than having the hard conversations with people who are in conflict with their belief system and trying to almost convert them, or at least show them the commonalities that they have, where you're saying the same thing. Like for me, when I sit and talk with my parents for 9 hours, we cry, we yell, we have lots of discourse around what we're actually talking about. But the thing is when it comes to the end of our conversation, we realize that the thing is we're both protecting the 2% of the population that we feel needs to have a voice in the world.
Yeah.
And that needs to be protected, and that there needs to be boundaries around the way that people interact with them. And for me, obviously that's been the progressive movement that we've been, trying to proliferate a movement around. But for my parents, maybe it's middle class Americans who don't want to use specific language, but or like are accepting of all people, but they have a hard time being told that they have to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like being able to sit down with those people and have really difficult conversations. That is the job for me. And so like that's kind of been and those conversations don't happen on a public forum. You're never going to have a conversation with somebody that has a conflicting belief system with you in a public forum that's going to benefit either of you.
Yeah.
It'll benefit the system that's meant to benefit, which is social media and the engagement algorithms. But it's not actually going to grow either person. And I think that like that's the sentiment that I have really been leaning into, is like, stop trying to fix the world and be a better neighbor, which was always like a very like conservative mentality, because it's like, don't worry about the world, worry about the people, the 5 people that are close to you. But I think like that is the responsibility. If you are unaffected by the people that are around you in that way, in a way that's demeaning, derogatory, some sort of like problematic behavior system, if those things aren't being implemented against you, I think your responsibility is to help come alongside those people and find common ground. And that's part of what I see Joe Rogan doing. And maybe he is the conservative that I'm talking to and trying to have those conversations with. And he just happens to be having those conversations with intellectual, progressive, liberal scientists. But like, I think that he is creating a platform where those kind of interactions are happening. And that's what I hope to be doing off camera. That's what I am constantly trying to do.
Can't wait to have merch to send Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I'd love for him to wear a Curious Cutie sweatshirt.
That'd be amazing. Oh my God, I would die.
Okay, why do you think society tends to idolize those who solve external issues, but sometimes overlook those who work on self-improvement and self-awareness? And what are the consequences of this perspective?
I don't think that as humanity we do that. I think it's just the perspective of social media. I think the only thing I can perceive is somebody's opinion on social media, because I'm not having conversations with strangers in that way. So like my perception is that like that's all that they're doing. But in interpersonal relationships that I have, that's not the case at all.
Okay.
How about you?
I don't necessarily think they do.
Okay, interesting.
Do
you want to expand on that, or is that just like there's not really an expansion on it? It's just like you're like, it's just not really an applicable conversation.
Yeah, I don't think like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't think they do. I think I agree.
Yeah.
What you said about like social media, like you think social media is that way and that's not the actual state of the world. It's just interesting because I'm like, but isn't
social media is the state of the world? No, it's not. And it's like, and I think that's the thing. I feel so controversial to continue saying this, but like, I think that is the thing that a lot of like middle class conservative Americans are experiencing is that they're not really on social media. There's no benefit for them. There's no like, they're not going to get a gold star for being a progressive, activist. And they're not really conservative activists either, because they're like, look, I'm just trying to live my life. And so your family or your cousins or your like friends from 13 years ago, like they're just doing their thing, and they're like, you're kind of going off the deep end, but they also, you're the one that they're saying that to, who is the progressive, most likely, if you're listening to this podcast. You're the progressive ideologist, but they're probably saying that to their like radicalized conservative family too, or friends. It's like, I think that there's just something about the simplicity of actually living in relation with the people that are around you, that like the radicalization is happening online, and the only people that are going to be at effect to that are the people who are radicalized. And I would consider myself one of those, at least for a very long time. I have been, and I'm trying to move myself back into a healthier space so that I can really get a gauge on where the world actually is, rather than where this like glitz and glamour of anarchy is happening online.
Yeah. The algorithm that is feeding you, like, because every algorithm is feeding that person.
No, you are feeding the algorithm.
Well, yes, but I'm saying like everything's getting regurgitated, like it's giving you what you want, like you,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You think like
it's giving you the reward system. It has created the rat in the maze.
It's giving you all the news that you want.
Yes. Well, and the thing is, too, the way that you interact with that, just like, rat in a maze, just like a lot of these different scientific experiments, is like you can have a rat 3 generations down that still knows how to find the cheese in the maze. Like it doesn't have to be the one that had experience to that. Which built,
is amazing.
It's built into the system. It's the thing that we really idolize in animals, is their ability to like act on instinct, and we're building that into ourselves. The thing is that our kids are going to have the instinct to respond to things that are being created and congratulated, rewarded on social media.
Yeah.
That's going to be what's built into their DNA. The reward system is changing.
Interesting. That's scary.
I agree, which is why I try to stay off of social media. And like, I would much rather have conversations with people, because the interesting thing is that like, I tend to err on the side of a little controversial to my progressive counterparts. And the thing is that I will see them post on social media these really like, not extremist, that sounds a little derogatory, but like they'll post these really, emotionally weighted. Yeah. There's a lot of like weight on their belief system that they're posting online. Big. Thank you, Sophia. There's a lot behind it. And then I have conversations with them in person, and it's incongruous with what at least the emotions that they pervade online. And I'm like, I think that we are creating a dichotomy of personality, even in people who have a very clear linear path to like how they believe. Even if they're like diehard progressives in person and online, their online personality will still be different. And I think that we're rewarding that system, because just like we saw in the church spaces when we were touring, they're preaching hellfire and brimstone from the stage, and backstage they're debating Richard Rohr. Like, that's rewarded because they're going to make their money. And granted, social media is not necessarily making your money, but kind of it is.
Well, it's like
if
social
you want a platform,
status.
Yeah. If you want the ability to potentially be rewarded monetarily for the things that you believe online, which most people want to have a podcast or want to like create a brand or like an identity where there's social incentive to the things that they believe, and why would you do anything other than be more of an extremist version of yourself that's going to garner the response that you want? And I feel like that is driving us. Like, I don't really see progressive people. First of all, I work at a progressive church, and like it's just their willingness to give to a system that they believe in is significantly lower than somebody that's driven by longstanding religious systems. And also, like, just like we were watching in Sex Education the other day in that show, it's still conservative churches that are putting on food pantries. It's still them being working soup kitchens. There's a whole lot of talk coming from progressive ideologies and progressive icons, and there's just not a lot of boots to the ground.
I like how openly you're talking about all this stuff. I feel like it's a fresh side of you that I get to see, obviously, all the time.
Yeah.
But I just love hearing you like go about it, which is part of why I wanted to like talk about your thoughts and like why I did kind of want to ask you, like probe you a little bit, because it's just, I feel like you're in this new season of like really telling your truth, and
I am. Well, it's more like
you.
I just feel like I have an obligation to hold people's feet to the fire. That like I'm just
boots to the ground, feet to the fire.
There's just a complacency that's happening right now that like people are still being rewarded in the same way that they were when ideologies were a little cutting edge in 2018.
Right.
And now it's 2023, 5 years later, and they're just still like reaping the rewards of kind of being a little edgy back then rather than actually like continuing to be progressives. Yeah. You should be progressing if you're a progressive, right? Like your actions should progress, or I mean your words should progress into actions. Yeah. And I just feel like your words are just progressing into different words that kind of mean the same thing. Not yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's discuss the concept of villainization. Okay. Villainization of proactive problem solving. In your opinion, why do people sometimes perceive proactive individuals as villains or troublemakers?
Because predominantly because of the token term of white saviorism. At least in my experience.
Okay.
Because like in the same way that I can also project onto other people right now, you know, there's the war that's happening in Israel right now between Israel and Palestine. And like I think it's extremely arrogant of people to just say online, cease fire. Like, you think they would have thought of that at this point. Don't kill each other. Obviously that has been the go-to for hundreds of years, that there's been this holy war that's been happening in the Middle East. And like, clearly that's not working. There's Palestinians that are being, I mean, it's their ability to live any sort of life is being completely demeaned by a federal system that's legislating them out of existence. And yet there's a lot of innocent Jewish people that are living in Israel that are now at effect to terrorism that's being purveyed by Hamas. And so it's like, it's not, there's no clear cut lines. And like a lot of people really want to be like, they really want to draw a line in the sand and say that it's clear and that there's like this, there is an answer. And a lot of them are saying it's the ceasefire, but like that's coming from very Western ideologies. It's coming from like a place of extreme privilege of in the grand scheme of things, never really being oppressed to that point. Especially for people like me who are, and the people that I'm seeing conversations kind of circulating around, is like, it's kind of just a lot of white people saying ceasefire because they are too sad when they go on social media. And because the reality of it is too sad. And it's like, I think that's my version of being like, stop trying to be a white savior.
Okay.
But to kind of go back to your question, that's talking about like, why is proactive problem solving? Why is that not really, why is that not rewarded in the same way? It's because it's really easy to shoot down a specific like plan. Like,
have you ever been in a situation where somebody's just like offering, well, we could go here. I'm like, no, I don't want to.
Totally.
Or we could go there.
Yes, exactly.
No, I don't want to. It's like, okay, well, if you don't want to go to all these places, I've come up with 6 places. Like, where do you want to go?
What do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, that's the mentality that like I feel like is really prevalent online is like you can't really argue with a negative. There's not really anything to say like yes, the police system in the United States is really abusive specifically to marginalized identities, specifically Hispanic and Black communities. What are we going to do about it? And it's like, you know, there's just and obviously that's a very specific one, but like a lot of people are like abolish the police. And great, if that's going to work, let's do that. But there's a lot of people that are like, well, that's not going to work. That's their response is that's not going to work. And I think that's one of the more like publicized actual active problem solving things that has been out there and is actually being implemented a little bit better than most, but like it's not really like for what are the odds that you're going to come up with a solution that a bunch of people are going to rally behind?
Right.
It's a lot more likely that you're going to come up with the problem that a lot of more people are going to feel the obligation to empathize with.
Yes, and also things like posting ceasefire.
Sure.
Who's going to respond back to that and be like, no, don't ceasefire?
Right.
Like you're posting something that nobody's really going to like respond negatively in a way, you know what I mean? It's like when somebody's like, well, what do you want? Like, oh, I want world peace. Like nobody's going to be like, oh, I want world terror. Like, you know what I mean? It's like easy to say the things that like if you can like no one would ever say the opposite kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like
you can't really disagree with me, so it's easy for me to say these things. And also, now that social media is out, there's an obligation for you to actually validate the thing that I said.
Yeah.
So, like, not only is it already, like, basically a given, now you can actually go out and punish other people for not saying anything. Right. You can go punish people for not posting ceasefire.
Which, man, I would love for somebody to come after me for that kind of thing.
Well, and that's just, like...
I wouldn't actually love it, but it would be hysterical. I'd blast their ass. Yeah.
I mean, that feels...
So, would you like that? Want me to blast your ass?
After the podcast, okay?
Okay. After the cameras are turned off.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So, okay.
We have to have a little integrity.
All right. How can individuals strike a balance between addressing external problems and prioritizing their own growth and well-being? What strategies have you found effective in achieving this balance?
Pick a few. Activate on it.
Pick a few what?
A few causes that are some of the obviouses. Sure, like, yeah, Black Lives Matter, obviously. LGBTQIA, love is love, obviously.
Yeah.
Right now, what I do is I exist in a progressive Christian church space where I am in constant pursuit of creating community for people that need that. Though I am an agnostic atheist, I'm in a space for people that are, specifically in this case, LGBTQIA, somewhere in there, and still have a moral and really heartfelt obligation to their faith. And they need that in their life. And like, for me, I don't need that. I don't need the messages. Josh obviously is like, he's a great speaker. He's very intellectual. He's well researched. But like, I don't need convincing of faith, of Christianity. I don't need progressive Christianity, but there are so many people that do, that for me, it's a space that I'm committed to being in because there are people who do need that, and I needed that in a season. And like, for me, that's my boots to the ground. That's me being actively involved in creating an environment outside of social media. Most people don't even know I do it. That's me being outside of the social media institution and constantly putting an effort to try to better a space that benefits people that I believe need allies.
I definitely feel like I stretched myself way too thin in like 2020. I think so many of us did, with all the things I was like passionate about and like emotionally upset about and invested in, whatever.
Well, and also Donald Trump was in office and I literally saw you crying tears about the potential of our children.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
there was emotional labor you did just by existing as who you are.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, it was definitely a lot, and I found like that I allow myself to move through. You said like pick a few things, and like that's true, but I do think like it's important to stay flexible with that too, because you could be passionate about, let's say you have 3 things, right? And like one of them was like, or those are your 3 passions, okay? And then let's just say like someone in your family, you know, ends up getting like this rare like disease or cancer or something. Like one of those 3 things may fall to the wayside a bit because your personal experience, and now you're like, people need to know about this cancer, people need to know about this disease, people need to know that this causes this, and like, and I think it's important to be flexible with yourself when it comes to your passions, and that's what I had to allow myself to do as well. Yeah. Because they were all adding up rather than moving through.
Because you need to be able to let them go. That's why I say pick a few.
You have to like, you have to be able to move through them, and and it's also, this is really important. I think it's very valid and very important for you to choose something that actually you are passionate about, and not like your friends are passionate about, or the community you're trying to be around is passionate about. You won't tire as easily, like you're gonna stay passionate about it, but also like
you're gonna see the ramifications of inaction constantly.
Well, we need the world of people who have niche passions. Yeah, like that's how we take care of everyone. Yes. You know, and if we're also focused on the same 3 topics, everything else is like flushed down the toilet. Like we all each have to care about individual problems in the world, you know, not that we need to focus on problems, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think that's something we're not encouraged to do in society, say social media, whatever. But I think it's really important for you to fall down the rabbit hole of your passions, of the things that bother you, the things that you're impassioned by, the things that are that matter to you on a personal level. That's why you are a person. Like you are literally a personal person who is unique. Like that's your purpose, is to stay your own person, and to just be passionate about the things that matter to you. So
I think that's why cancel culture is so dangerous, is because like it kind of eliminates a lot of the options that you have for the things that you're personally passionate about, because of the fear that it may conflict with one of the things that's socially acceptable to be passionate about. Right. Right. Or if you don't have the capacity to be vocal about another problem that's like a current event. Right. And you instead choose to continue to be passionate about something that maybe isn't as socially relevant. And sometimes that just triggers the wrong person. Yeah. I mean, not to like get too like reality TV about it, but that's happened to the Kardashians a lot, where like, Kim, people are literally dying.
Yeah. And that was a few seasons back.
Yeah, totally. But like, you know what I mean? Is that like sometimes you really do need to give yourself the ability to focus in on something that's just an interpersonal issue. And you really need to flush out your ability to call attention to that thing in a social environment. And that doesn't always come across well. Yeah. And I think that the fear that you're not this again feels like conservative language, but like the fear, but it's not. This is bipartisan language. I need to stop prefacing my own statements.
Yes, you do.
But like the fear that you're not towing the party line, and that's going to have negative ramifications for you, really does stop some people from actually pursuing some of the problems that they see in the world that are right around them, because it doesn't fit with the narrative of what's being spoken about on social media. And
Yeah.
maybe this is just me dragging social media for an entire episode, but like
A little bit.
social media is the only place that 95% of your interactions happen.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm locked up in a windowless warehouse for 10 hours a day with people that I don't agree with. My interactions aren't happening there.
Yeah.
Not really. And so I'm trying to put in a lot of effort in other places to be able to move things that I believe in forward. But for a lot of people, like, they turn to social media for that thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you give some examples of people or movements that successfully balance self-growth and proactive problem solving? And how did they manage to change the narrative? Besides curiosity.
I mean, the first person that comes to my mind is this guy that has interacted with me specifically and our podcast really regularly for a long time. His name is Seth Maxwell, and he does the Thirst Project, and he does the Legacy Youth Leadership. And it's like, it's one of those things that like he operates in spaces that are very progressive, and he like definitely like comes alongside people who are speaking in places like ours, but like he's been on this mission, like building out these brands and building out these businesses that really are trying to do something specific in the world, like bringing people water, or really trying to like empower youth in their ability to like do something, to activate on something in the same way that he kind of is with the Thirst Project stuff. So like that's the first person that I can think of that's like an actual like tangible right in front of me that I see on a pretty consistent basis. But I mean, I think the thing is that there are a lot of podcasters that are actually putting in really, really good work. They're interviewing really interesting people. Obviously, Tara Tang doing embodiment work.
True. I was gonna say other than curiosity, Adam. Come on.
Yeah, right. I mean, but it all revolves around that. Like that's where that's where my community exists, is in the DMs and in like my perception of things. I know you're the one in the DMs, but like those are the people that I know. Is like who's popping by, who's liking, who's commenting, and then like, I mean, people like Tara Tang, like doing embodiment work, doing these coaching classes, like Sophia. She's just like a powerhouse of building her own brand and identity, and she's doing photography, she's doing marketing, she's doing all these things.
So our friends, basically.
But well, yeah. I mean, who else would we be friends with?
Exactly.
Just people who are building themselves, who have been consistent in who they are, who have been consistent in the things that they're trying to achieve in the world, and have added in little pieces of like the things that they see in the world and their growth. They're like micro growths, and they're just like pulling them into the fold of like who they are and what they're growing into.
I like that.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to curious cuties who want to lead a more purposeful and growth-oriented life while also making a positive impact on the world without being seen as villains?
It's a very specific caveat on that. I like it.
Yeah.
I think
you just made me think of that TikTok. Ooh, I love this question. I think.
Oh my God, I don't know that one.
Oh.
It shows how much I'm on social media.
We literally did that one.
We did?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It shows how much I know. I think the thing is like, it's not about what anybody really thinks of you online. The people that I'm potentially in my mind casting judgment on, and they're like social justice warrioring online, maybe they're doing really impactful, really important work in the background. And maybe it's just my shallow interpretation of how they exist as a human being, because that's my only perspective on them. And so like, I guess just don't worry about what people have to say about your online presence, because it's not reflective of who you are.
Don't worry.
Do the things, help your community, like be in good conversations with people. And make sure that you're like just always staying curious. Like I feel like the best thing that you can do is stay curious and be open and like be willing to have conversations with people, hear somebody have a conflicting opinion with you, and your response is curiosity, not anger, not like resentment. It's not like
focus on their functions.
Yeah.
Take that from me.
Don't be so like, as I was kind of having a conversation yesterday, was Sunday, right? Don't be reactive, be responsive. Don't just react out of your gut. Sit with the things.
Right.
Process that you have your own traumas. Realize that like the best thing that you can do is hear somebody for their heart and respond back to them in kind with your heart, so that you can actually come to real solutions for the problems that are the problems and the like, just the realities of the world that are actually around you. And you can come together in so many different ways, because once you get into human interaction, your social clout and the like community that you belong to in some sort of weird political social function doesn't matter, as long as you're trying to achieve the same goal. And I think that's like the best way that we can move forward.
I think if a person or a group of people makes you uncomfy, lean in. And that happens to me over and over with I want to say opposite groups, but it happens to me all the time. Adam and I were watching something the other night, and I was like, ugh, it'd make me so uncomfortable to be in that room. Yeah. And, a year ago, I wouldn't have said that. And it's like, keep leaning into those spaces that make you uncomfy, where you're just like, I don't know how I would talk. I don't know. I feel like they'd make fun of me. I feel like I would be weird. I feel like I would just be uncomfortable. I feel like you just have to lean into it. As hard as that is. But anyway, about the whole, like, not being seen as a villain thing, like, you can't help how people perceive you. Like, that's the one thing, like, what somebody thinks about you is none of your business. It's like one of my favorite things to say. It's literally none of your business. Like, what somebody thinks about you and like who you are, the villain, the hero, the side character in the story, like, it doesn't, that's their brain. It's their perspective. It's their own consciousness. It's not yours. It's not your business. Yeah. And I think that's really helped me. I'm like, totally. It's really, it really doesn't matter. I can't change what they see me as. Yeah. And if they stick around long enough, how they view me may and probably will likely change at some point. And that's just life. Like, nobody sees you the way you see you. You can't control that. So yeah, it's something you just kind of have to like grapple with. I think in that same vein, if your activism comes from trying to match somebody's energy online, if you're trying to match what you're seeing on social media, and that is the primary driver for your activism in the world, that's where you're going to fail. Yeah. Because in my own kind of, like, as I was just saying, like, they're probably, the people I'm seeing online, what they're doing online, they're probably doing something really incredible back home that I don't see at all. Yeah. But if you think that the work that you're putting in is matching the people online, virtue signaling to the people and the belief systems that you see as being like predominant in social media spaces, that's the only time you're going to fail. Yeah. The other thing that I started implementing, which is actually way harder than you'd expect, or maybe you would understand, but every time I have the urge, or I feel like this guilt that I should post about something, like whether it's social justice or whether it's for some sort of social group or whatever the case, if I start feeling like, oh, they're gonna wonder, like, I should post about this, whatever, I go and find a GoFundMe or some way I can donate or like spend my money or energy or sign something like online, like some sort of like document, some sort of whatever, putting campaign. In my vote. Yeah, campaign. I find something to where I can sign my name or donate my money instead of posting online. And it's more actual activism that I've done in the years when I was this social justice warrior, you know, because I was just posting on social media.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't doing anything. I meant it and I felt it with all my soul.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I felt it so deeply. But now I'm like actively an activist in the things that matter to me, you know? And I think so. Maybe take that on as a challenge, is every time you feel like you need to, ought to, think about like what is it actually doing for the people or organization or group of people you're actually posting about or for? Like, what does you posting that thing actually do for them?
Yeah. Is it assuaging your guilt, or is it actually doing something for their...
Is your guilt, or also it can just like feel good, like you're part of a community or something, that's fine too. But I encourage you to like take a step back and maybe don't post it, and don't align your identity so much with just that one share of the day, and instead find something to sign your name up on campaign or donate your money, and that's actual work. So anyway,
that's so good. That's such a great thought.
That's what I've been doing lately, and it's hard because I want the immediate reward, but I just donate instead, and I'm like actually doing things.
Leave the marketing to the people who are actually like making the thing happen.
Exactly. And then I'll reshare things sometimes, just like for people to donate, which I've decided that's how I like to share things on social media when it comes to like problems of the world. Is I'm not going to reshare news articles. That's just not what I do anymore.
It's just not helpful.
But I will share places you can donate typically every once in a while. So anyway, that's my advice.
Love that.
Okay, are there any books, podcasts, or resources that have influenced your perspective on these topics that you'd recommend to curious cuties?
Yeah, there's for those of you that are like me, and looking for like happy men in the podcasting space, there is a conversation podcast platform called Man Talks that's really good. I feel like they just have a really good perspective on like bringing actual like there's just like it gives me the almost 30 vibes where it's like you're actually like moving toward growth and joy in a lot of the spaces. In a lot of the other podcasts that I see that are led by men, it's just kind of like they're just kind of sad and it's just kind of like either really, really heady, which I enjoy on occasion, or it's just like, yeah. And so I really have enjoyed that one.
Great.
There's one that's moderately controversial, but I feel like they have a pretty accepting, spread of guests. Like the way the people that they interview is interesting enough and keeps it broad enough. That's called Modern Wisdom. Okay. But the guy, it's interesting because the guy that is the host of the podcast used to be like, I mean, literally like a club promoter out of the UK. And he's like, there's so much about it that should be toxic masculine, red flags everywhere, which there probably is. But I think that
I feel like your guests are an example of your functions.
Yes. Because you actually have intrigue and interest into the people and the minds of those that you're interviewing.
I'm more interested in like the type of people somebody brings on.
Who are they listening to?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Tells you a lot about their brain.
That to me, those are two pretty middle of the road suggestions for podcasts. One person that probably is very conservative for all of you guys, that has been very instrumental in pushing me more into my need to actually put effort and work into my existence. It kind of gives me the energy of like, nobody owes you anything. You have to put in the effort. It's going to be very man, but it really is beneficial to me growing up in the kind of household that I did. And that podcast is the Bedros Keuilian podcast. The way that he talks is very, very man, buff dude. But it's interesting when you hear him just like drop little pieces of a conversation about spirituality.
If you can take good from the Bible.
Yeah. You can take
good from anything.
Yeah, and so that's another one there.
So that's my hot take.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I feel like that is.
I'm just trying to relate to our listeners, like in that way. I'm like, look, if we can find good in like that sort of thing, we can find good anywhere.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing is like there's some things that I'm looking for that are social. There's some things that I'm looking for that are spiritual. And there's some things that I'm looking for that are just really practical to the way I exist in the world.
Yeah.
And like that guy is one of the people that he just puts a certain gear into, puts a certain whatever, puts me into a certain gear that like just I feel an obligation to my own responsibilities in the world. And that ends up making me look into, different podcasts to really, whether it's to be like, you know what, this guy is totally wrong. The things that he's saying are really problematic. I need to find somebody to prove the opposite side of the conversation. I think sometimes that's important for me. Yeah. And sometimes that's what he provides for me is inspiration to be like, no, you're wrong. Yeah. Those are, and I know those are all just. You can
be inspired by someone's tenacity, someone's functions,
drive.
The way they like ask questions, the way they're curious about something, the way that I think that's all a big part of like, I think everyone gets it. Like we're at the point, I think, with a lot, especially our community, a lot of people, if they're honest, the podcasts they listen to are quite varied.
Yeah, I hope
so. If people are honest, I genuinely believe that we would be surprised and then relieved if we heard the types of podcasts that each of us are listening to. We'd be like, oh, okay, so you're not like, you listen to a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. Yeah. Oh, like maybe there are other conversations we could actually have with each other if I knew that you were listening to such and such. Like,
yeah, I hope people hear my heart and then also hear the things that I'm listening to and can relate those two things, because like I've heard from so many people that they really enjoy my ability to tap into my emotional side and like have good conversations from that place. But like I hope that it also is really encouraging to you that I don't only listen to things that sound like me. I'm hopefully not just an echo chamber of the content I consume. I hope to be more than that. I hope to add complexity to the way that I exist in the world. And so those are three like specifically male-oriented podcast hosts that I don't think would really be introduced to you in this kind of space. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Or you can ignore them.
Thank you for sharing.
And that's fine. That's fine too. If that's not what you're looking for, I'm sorry. You can also go listen to all the other ones we've always recommended.
Okay. Just a couple more questions for you.
All right.
Okay.
I feel so honored to be a guest of you. You're such a good interviewer.
Oh my gosh. Stop. It's my favorite thing to do. So happy to do it. Okay. Let's dive into your personal strategies. Okay. For maintaining motivation and resilience when pursuing self-growth and proactive problem solving. How do you keep going when facing challenges and criticism?
So to be like very clear with everybody, like right now on top of this podcast, I work 3 jobs. And so my life is very, very full.
Poor Adam.
No, but not poor me, because the thing is I would only subject myself to this because it's things that I care about and things that I can see growth opportunity in. And so like that is the way that I keep moving forward is like, especially, I mean, even tonight we were literally having a conversation because I came home from 10 hours of work to, we cooked dinner together, and then I came and set up the podcast here.
I'm sick.
And you're a little sicky. And like, my mind is very anxious. My body is very full of stress in most of my life. But the constant reminder in my mind that like, it will all get done. And I know that's very practical. It's not very spiritual, but like to be able to sit and meditate on the fact that like I have always been able to achieve the things that I've set in front of me. I have always gotten it done. It will get done. The things that you desire, the things that you value in your life, like you will spend the time to make sure that they're achieved, and they have always gotten done, and it will get done. It's such a meditation for me to ground myself into the reality of like, it's okay to be overwhelmed. It's not okay to submit to the overwhelm and let it deteriorate your ability to actually do the things that you want in life. And so for me, it's like, yes, I'm constantly inundated with responsibilities and jobs and goals and like so much stuff. It just breathing, realizing that I'm here, that I'm present, getting grounded back in the reality that like an hour will always be 60 minutes and that I always will have time. I can always get it done. Like that's what keeps me kind of moving forward.
How do you deal with criticism? Do you get criticism?
It depends on in what environment it is. If it's one of my creative outlets, I really have a hard time with it because I'm like, I'm not really trying to do this for you. I'm doing this for me. I'm not really interested in your opinion.
So like a hard ass. Okay.
Sometimes in that environment, but I actually am really like, I was your drummer for a long time. No, I do know. I'm really good at receiving constructive criticism.
For the most part.
Wow. Well, I've always been told that I am really good at taking on constructive criticism. No, you are. I'm just kidding. You are. I have. Your sister does press my buttons.
Yes.
we have creative differences.
Yes, you do. No, but
we press each other's buttons for different reasons.
Yeah.
It's mostly because we're so similar, and less about the actual criticism. But in work environments, like at work, like it's my favorite thing to receive constructive criticism because it means I'm learning. If I've failed, I haven't failed yet. I've just been informed of my failure before it was time to submit to the failure. Yeah. And so like in an environment like that where I'm like, I'm a woodworker, everything can be fixed. Everything can be remedied. You can always, there's always a solution to the problem. Yeah. And so for me to be presented with the problem before the deadline, or like if somebody's deadline adjusts because because they have a problem with X, Y, or Z, that's great for me. I'm like, amazing. You trust me still. You're not handing it off to somebody else. You trust me still that I have the capacity to actually fix the thing that you see as a problem. That's really great for me. I actually really enjoy that because I love learning. Like my spirituality lately, I've been telling you, is like in the unknown. Like I'm constantly looking into like quantum theory and particle physics and like all this stuff because I'm like, oh, I know nothing about this. I know absolutely nothing. Somebody's going to teach me something new. I'm going to like say something to you about the things that I've learned, and then I'm going to listen to a podcast tomorrow that's going to make me realize how dumb I sounded trying to explain something to you. And that is spiritual to me. Yeah. To realize that there's so much more out there than I know. That's what I say as like, I say that I'm an atheist, but I don't want to be. I'm a reluctant atheist because I just want somebody to prove to me that there's something more to believe in than the things that are quantifiable in front of me. And to me, constructive criticism is showing me, it's giving me the ability to see beyond the things that I know right now.
Yeah. What about criticism with like your self-development and your self-growth stuff? Like, for instance, the Barbie video. I guess I'm thinking about the way you dealt with the criticism on that video. That's
not even criticism.
But that was funny. And that was online. That was social media. That was something that was kind of not social justice, but it was kind of like.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I was just batting down bad opinions.
Okay. So that's how you deal
with it, I don't take it as criticism. It's not criticism to me unless I actually value your opinion.
Okay. Okay, so like trolls don't matter to you. No. That's not a criticism.
No. I will just put them in their place.
Got it. So that's how Adam deals with it.
And that's fun for me on occasion because like he loves it. I am not cocky, but it's just like if you're just gonna put yourself out there and really show how shallow your belief of who I am or the thing that you're consuming is, especially when I'm the one creating the content, I'll have a good time with that.
Gosh, it was like my nightmare to respond to trolls. But Adam likes it, so I'm like, please go for it.
I do. I'm very confident in my ability to communicate my thoughts and ideas to people that have bad opinions online.
I love
but
that.
It feels like a cheap shot to me because I'm like, you just are already showing your inadequacy to be able to even engage in this conversation.
Oh my gosh, see? He's spicy. He's a spicy one. This
Sorry,
Adam.
guys.
Okay. Love that. Okay, last question.
Oh, all right.
All right. In today's world, where social issues and self-improvement are increasingly interconnected, how can individuals and society as a whole benefit from a more holistic approach that values both aspects?
I think by seeing commonality. I think it all comes back to that. Whether that's commonality with somebody who you're trying to protect as a marginalized identity, or if that's commonality with somebody who's been problematic in your life that you've grown past. I think like personal growth is always going to come from gleaning the most amount of information from the people around you and learning who you want to be in the world. Alongside those people. There's people who are going to give you clarity about who you are in ways that you wouldn't have been able to like discern on your own. And that can be from negative or positive reinforcement. And I think just existing and being present is always going to drive you toward growth and also being a strong proponent of the things you believe in.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Well, thanks for chatting with me about all this.
Yeah, this was fun.
Thanks.
I like the surprise questions.
Thanks for being here on Curiosity.
Yeah.
We're
We're just a bunch of curious cuties over here.
We are. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this conversation. I know I did.
Yeah, this was fun.
Please share, like, rate, review, all the things.
Subscribe. Comment.
Do all the things. Follow at Curiosity Pod and at Lauren DeLeary.
And also
don't even worry
subscribe
about
to our Patreon.
Oh, yeah. Subscribe to our Patreon because we have exclusive content coming your way, baby.
We do.
But yeah, don't worry about following Adam.
Don't worry about that. No, I don't do anything.
Although he did change his handle name to now it says Adam Frost.
Which is very controversial for me.
Adam doesn't even swear, but it's hilarious. And so it's Adam N. Frost, but it looks like Adam Frost. And it makes me think of Avril Lavigne's "It's a Damn Cold Night."
You're going back into breakup songs every time you see my Instagram?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
But Avril's amazing, so who knows?
That's true.
I mean, who cares? Anyway, thanks you guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Yous guys. What are you, from the Midwest now?
For listening.
You're a youper now.
We love you guys. Stay curious. And until next time. Bye.